Bam! Uh-oh, 1 o'clock and 16 seconds. And, oh, I don't even have the right shot up. I need this shot to be up. Boom. Okay, there you go. This is CCTV. Where are we? Here, let's show you a little bit of the nonsense outside this joint. Look at that. That's outside. Look at the little drill over there past the bus. Watch the bus go past. We talked about the dinosaur last week. What are they doing in Central Square? Oh, well. Where are we again? We are at CCTV, Cambridge Community Television, and this is yours truly, Brother R.A., the brother with something to say. And here, let's go into this real quick. Oh, let's do this one first.
Net duanet sefekera senues.
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 As we continue, we'll begin the drumming section. Those of you playing sister.
Hold on, don't go nowhere. Give me that volume.
Here in the Washington, D.C. metro
Hold
area.
on, put this back.
My name is Dr. Milton Mills. I am an internal medicine trained physician who works now exclusively as an intensive care unit doctor here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Humans are often described as being omnivores, and that description is actually based on watching what a lot of humans choose to eat. And if you look at the majority of humans on the planet, yes, they do choose to include both animal foods and plant foods in their diet. But in fact, when you actually look at the way our digestive systems are constructed, we have the anatomy and the physiology of a strict plant eater or herbivore. We don't have any adaptations in our digestive system or in our physiology that is adapted to eating or consuming animal flesh. And that's why we can't consume animal flesh without the aid of technology. But when you look at the jaw structure and jaw mechanics, our esophagus, our stomach, and the length of our intestines, it's clear that we have the anatomy of a committed herbivore. You know, one of the questions that all vegans and vegetarians get that drives me literally out of my mind, where do you get your protein? It's an insane question because all protein is originally made by plants. Any protein you get from an animal source is actually recycled protein. And it's much healthier to actually get your protein from the plant sources because it turns out that plant proteins have a much better impact on our health. They are better for your immune system. They lower your risk of diabetes, heart disease, and cancer, whereas animal proteins, on the other hand, increase your risk for cancer, heart disease, and other problems. So you absolutely do not need animal food to get your protein. If you just stop and think about it, the largest, strongest animals on the planet are all strict herbivores. So your elephants, your rhinos, your horses, your giraffes, they're all strict herbivores, and they get all of the protein that they need from plant sources. The atmosphere is something like 80% nitrogen. And only plants have the ability to take nitrogen from the air and change it into a form that can be incorporated into an amino acid, which is then connected together to form these proteins. There has never been a study that has shown that dairy calcium protects our bones from osteoporosis. In fact, the majority of people of color are lactose intolerant. So for instance, 95% of Asians are lactose intolerant. 73% of African Americans are lactose intolerant. 74% of Native Americans are lactose intolerant. And approximately 53% of Hispanics are lactose intolerant versus only about 30 to 33% of Caucasian Americans. The watershed moment came when I had this one African American woman who came in and said to me, "I'm having this problem." And I said to her, "Well, you're lactose intolerant." She looked at me and said, "Oh, I know that." And I said, "Well, if you know that you're lactose intolerant, why are you continuing to eat dairy foods?" And she said to me, "Because the government says I have to." And that really made me very, very angry because the government was intentionally encouraging people of color to eat foods that it knew was going to make them sick, not for a health benefit, but because of the lobbying efforts of the dairy industry. It clearly was a case of institutional racism. Dairy products are often touted as the best way to get your calcium, but that is marketing. It is not science. 80% of the disease and premature death that we see could be prevented if people ate differently and switched from a diet that was centered around animal foods to one that was a plant-based diet based on whole plant foods, including whole grains, legumes, greens, fruits, and vegetables. That's a diet that promotes the best overall health for humans. We can avoid and even reverse a lot of these chronic diseases by changing to a plant-based diet.
Okay, so we heard that. Now let's get off this screen and move on to the next piece here in brotherra.com. Hey, did I even get to show you the palatial suite yet? I see you up there, yeah? Are you in this? Are you the target? Or are you observing and absorbing your whole environment? Oh, real quick, if I show this shot here and say, hey, happy winter solstice, the longest night, the shortest day, new beginnings, the 21st, that's Friday. Yeah, happy winter solstice. And Milton Mills was on last week's show. So, and I have had Muata Ashby on the show. This is a coloring book that he did, and this is for the kids, and all the children learning about Asur, Aset, and Heru. You know, I'm just sharing a little bit of knowledge and information that you can have for the children, and this is a series, the Tell Me Who I Am series. We began with mind control. Mark Phillips and Kathy O'Brien, they did 2 segments with me. Then we had Dr. Leonard Jeffries on 11/21 talking about Skip the Facts Gates. And then we talked about milk, the deadly poison, with, what's that man's name? It'll come to me, Robert Cohen. And then there's Howard Lyman, that was on 12/5/18. That was a great show. He's the Howard Lyman, the mad cowboy. And I showed the pictures of the shadows of the pyramids and how the ancestors knew. I'll show you that. Let's just jump into this real quick. And last week we had Richard King, the author of Richard King, the author of this book here. Can y'all see that? African Origins of Biological Psychiatry. Dr. Richard King. And after him came Dr. Milton Mills. And now let's continue. Time is not a brother's friend. 57 minutes, 57 seconds, whatever you want to call it. Bam! Okay, we're going to jump into... let me throw this in here real quick. Since I brought the calendar. Oh, shoot, I don't have my glasses out. Okay, today, December 19th. 1865, even though this is 2018, and yup, that's that picture, you know, the black women being filed on the bus after, frustrating, but breathe. 1865, December 19th, South Carolina passes law that requires black servants to enter into labor contracts with white masters to work from dawn to dusk to maintain a polite demeanor. I've gotten kicked off of 4 radio stations. 2 of them were black owned. I guess I didn't maintain a polite demeanor. And we're gonna go into those sections, that type of programming. Right now, my co-host, or actually she was the host. I didn't have, I wasn't a member of a union, so I couldn't talk on that particular station. But here, let's go to that conversation right now, 12 minutes after top of the hour. I am your host, Brother R.A., and let's go to WILD, Say It Loud program hosted by Nina La Negra.
Good morning, Risa.
Good morning, Nina. I wanted to say congratulations to you.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Yeah, we've been getting a little bit of press these days, you know. The Bay State Banner and Miss K born last week. They got there first. Yes, and they were very gracious and hospitable with the article that they wrote.
Duo tackles tough topics on WILD, Say It Loud.
Very nice. The first sentence, TV has dialing for dollars, but WILD radio runs a better game. With the daily talk show Say It Loud, you dial in for cents.
You guys were very, very cool about it. I was very excited. I came in screaming, "You're in the newspaper!" And you're like, yeah, you're real cool, real, laid back. And, burst my bubble.
I just want to say thank you, Kenny, and thank you, Mel Miller.
There you go. And then today, the Boston Globe did a little something. Miss Clea Simon and Greg Moore, we want to say thank you very much.
Big ups, Greg.
Big ups, Clea. You know, and y'all were very kind. Wow, the voice for African Americans. That's today's Boston Globe in the Living Arts section.
Hey.
And how loud can a news show on a small AM-only radio station be?
Oh, very loud.
What kind of impact can a talk show have on a community? Those are the questions Say It Loud seeks to answer each weekday morning at 10 when it brings politicians, authors, healthcare workers, and religious leaders to the airways courtesy of WILD AM 1090.
I like Judge Severlin Singleton's comment.
Yeah, Savvy, what he said, he said, it's immensely important in terms of getting my message out, says Judge Severlin Singleton, an associate justice in the Cambridge District Court, who's been a guest for larger media outlets haven't wanted to listen to what I wanted to say, that there's injustice in the justice system. Without that talk show, I'd be talking to myself about these issues.
But don't talk to yourself. Talk to us. Say it loud on WILB AM 1090.
Yeah, you know, and I heard that Dorchester Community News and Peter Van Delft were giving us some props too, although I haven't seen that one yet. But
Yeah, Peter, bring that by the station.
no, we'll go look for it, yeah. But big ups to the team, you know, Miss Risa on the boards, producer extraordinaire, Brother R.A., and our great interns, Miss Pamela Howard, our publicist intern. That's right, girlfriend. Track them down and get us some bread.
Lemon system.
Yeah.
Seek some out.
Seek them out. She's a search and destroy kind of individual, you know. Let's get the heat-seeking missiles. And Miss Rosa Ruda. Rosa Ruda, right away. No, our news intern. All right, People Station. Trying to do our thing here and doing it with you. And let's take time to give major props to Brother Tony Irving. We'll call him our master scribe. We appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, we'll just call him the scribe from now on. T, when we talk about the scribe, he knows you.
No, wait a minute. Uriah, might get upset about that, right? If we say, well, maybe if we say the scribe. No. What's he called? His news pieces.
I'll find the committing term for scribe.
Please do that. Okay, we'll go committing on it. All right. Okay, listeners, let's get out one or two more items out of the way. We want to give props to former producer Harry B., who gave us the heads up on Miss Donna Harris-Lewis discussing her malpractice trial against Gilbert Mudge, MD, on another radio station last night. It was good to hear her speak after such a long media silence, and although most of the comments were respectful while she was on the air, it was scandalized my name time when she got off the air. And Brother R.A. actually jumped in on that radio station, got in his 2 cents. That was kind of interesting to hear you on the radio on another station.
It's just interesting that, I don't feel that Reggie Lewis or Donna is going to find justice here in America. Didn't Sutherland Singleton, who's a judge, say there's injustice in the justice system?
Yeah, anybody with their eyes open would say that.
There's definitely injustice in media and its presentation of black people.
Mm-hmm. And just to let you know, we don't always receive love letters, as much as some of you may find this hard to believe. And just to show you that we believe in saying it loud, however it may come, we want to take the time to read a critique received from one of our listeners just yesterday. Remember yesterday's show? What were we talking about yesterday? That was with,
It wasn't mad cowboy disease. It was,
Who was that? Oh, how can we forget, Lenny?
I think it was a crystal that stuck in my brain.
A prion crystal?
I got a fungus in the brain.
A fungus. All right, we were talking with Dr. Leonard Horowitz yesterday about a very serious topic. The brother, I got to call him a brother. He wrote the book, AIDS, Emerging Viruses, AIDS and Ebola, and the one that he just recently...
Healing Codes.
Yes, biological... What?
Apocalypse.
There we go. How can we forget it? The biblical... You know, that's what it is. I had too much grain this morning or something, But all right, back to the letter. This is not a love letter now, so brace yourself. Somebody unsigned, handwritten and fat.
Okay, wait a minute, hold on. You're going to send a nasty letter, but you're not bold enough to put your name on it.
Well,
No, you get no credit.
It's all right. But, we know where they work, so we can do like a handwriting analysis thing. But that's not necessary. It's cool. This is what the person said. I do not like your Say It Loud program. It is boring. It puts me to sleep while I'm sitting at my desk and waiting for patients. The music is perfect, but this talk show was not meant, spelled M-E-N-T, to be. You should play music all day.
No, that says bay.
No, it says day. It's a capitalized D. The only time...
Can't spell and talking about.
Come on. The only time the radio is turned off in capital letters is when this program comes on. Please cancel it. Well, my dear complainer, I'm sorry you don't like it that we talk about intelligent topics during the day. I'm sorry that it upsets you.
Fungus.
No, but you're assuming it's a she. It could be a he.
He.
Oh, see, now look. See. Now we get handwriting analysis going on up in here.
Boy, nice handwriting.
Well, come on now. Come on. Hey, everybody doesn't have to love us. It's all right. And we talk about tough topics. Today is no exception. Yes, we are very happy to bring to the listening audience, and you're waiting for patience, the person who doesn't like our show and thinks we should cut it off, and maybe you've cut us off already, and if so, more's the pity for you, my dear person. You work at a health center. Well, you will be very interested to hear what we have to say today. We're interviewing the author of the book Killing the Black Body, Race, Reproduction, and the Meaning of Liberty, Ms. Dorothy Roberts, who graduated from Yale College and Harvard Law School. She's the author of more than 40 articles and essays that have appeared in, among other publications, the Harvard Law Review, the New York Times. She's a professor at Northwestern University School of Law, where she teaches courses in criminal and family law and civil liberties. She lives in Evanston, Illinois. Thank you so much for joining us today on Say It Loud. Ms. Roberts, welcome to Say It Loud.
Thank you.
And I am pleased to interview you after having written this book back in 97, I think it was. It's been out for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But the topic is still very current for today. You start your book off in the introduction with a quote from Anna Julia Cooper, written in 1893, which I'd like to read and just kind of go into the reason why you wrote this book. The quote is, "The painful, patient, and silent toil of mothers to gain a fee simple title to the bodies of their daughters, the despairing fight as of an entrapped tigress to keep hallowed their own persons, would furnish material for epics." Explain what a fee simple title is.
Oh, well, in that quote, she's referring to the ownership that slave masters had over the bodies of slave women. And she's talking about the struggle that black mothers engaged in to win back their daughters. Black women fought in a lot of ways to gain control over their bodies, their reproductive bodies, which was one of the main aspects of slavery. And one of the ways they did it, if a black woman became free, she would try to buy her daughter as a way of keeping the daughter safe from the sexual exploitation and reproductive exploitation of slave masters. So in that quote, she's referring to black mothers trying to get a fee simple title or ownership of their daughters. Ironically, they would have to purchase their daughters in order to get control away from slave masters. And that was just one of many, many ways that slave women struggled to have control over their own bodies.
Now, that was in 1893. Let me bring it forward now. I'm still in the introduction of your book.
Mm-hmm.
And just to read a couple of lines from there, you say, in 1989, this is almost 100 years later,
Right.
Officials in Charleston, South Carolina, initiated a policy of arresting pregnant women whose prenatal tests revealed they were smoking crack. In some cases, a team of police tracked down expectant mothers in the city's poorest neighborhoods. In others, officers invaded the maternity ward to haul away patients in handcuffs and leg irons hours after giving birth. One woman spent the final weeks of pregnancy detained in a dingy cell in a Charleston County jail. When she went into labor, she was transported in chains to the hospital and remained shackled to the bed during the entire delivery. All but one of the 4 dozen women arrested for prenatal crimes in Charleston were black. Connect the two, please.
Yeah. Well, when I was doing my research for this book, it was really amazing to me, almost eerie, the way in which the policy in South Carolina replicated slavery. I mean, both in terms of attempting to control black women's decision-making, but just the visual image of women in the late 1980s and going into the 1990s shackled, pregnant women shackled in order to allegedly protect the fetus. Let me say a little bit about this policy in case it wasn't clear from that excerpt you read. In the late 1980s, prosecutors across the country initiated policies of prosecuting women who used drugs during pregnancy as a way of, they said, deterring women from using drugs while they were pregnant or punishing them for using drugs as a form of fetal abuse or child abuse, which may sound like a logical policy, except that
the vast majority of women who were punished were black. And as you just read, in South Carolina, out of almost 50 women who were punished in this policy of literally taking women from delivery rooms right after giving birth if they tested positive for drugs and dragging them to prison in leg irons, in shackles, handcuffs. If they were still pregnant when they were arrested, there was a belt that was tied around their bellies and then with chains attached to it, and they were taken to this horrible prison in South Carolina. And all of these women, except for one, were black. If you go over the media coverage of this epidemic of drug use during pregnancy, you'll find that in almost all of it, they talk about crack use. They don't mention that white women use drugs during pregnancy at least at the same rate as black women do. This is a problem that cuts across all racial lines and economic lines, and yet the women who were punished were almost exclusively, just with some exceptions, black women. And I argue in my book that this was not about protecting black children. We know that the same officials in South Carolina had no interest in protecting black children. These were all mostly women who came from very poor communities where the infant mortality rate was high, poverty rates are high, and children do not have healthy living conditions. But the purpose was to punish these women for having children. They were presented as women who didn't deserve to give birth, and they were treated, in my mind, as slaves. And so that's how I connect these two policies. In fact, there is an even closer connection if you look at the way in which pregnant slave women were punished. The slave masters would dig a trench in the ground and make them lie down in it so that their pregnant bellies were in the trench, and then they would be beaten on the back. And the purpose of this was to protect the fetus, which was going to be already was the property of the master, who would become a future slave, but punish the mother at the same time. And that way of punishing, beating pregnant slave women, to me, is the equivalent of the way in which these poor black women in South Carolina and other states in this country are punished on the pretext of protecting the fetus from harm.
And you talk also about poor black mothers are blamed for perpetuating social problems.
Yes.
And you say by transmitting defective genes, irreparable crack damage, and a deviant lifestyle to their children.
Yes.
And the Philadelphia Inquirer suggested coerced contraception as a solution to the black underclass. Talk about that solution.
Well, I think all of these policies reflect this idea, and I'm talking about a number of policies which I outline in my book, that seek to deter black women, especially poor black women, from having children. The prosecutions I just mentioned is one example, but there's also the distribution of Norplant through Medicaid in poor black communities, welfare policies that are intended to keep women on welfare from having children, and other policies. And they all are based on a theory that the reason why black people have high rates of poverty is that poor black women are having too many children, and if the government can just keep them from having these many children, the poverty rates will decline. And this theory was explicitly stated in a Philadelphia Inquirer editorial in 1990 that put together two recent news events the day before. One was the announcement that the FDA had approved Norplant, which is a long-acting contraceptive. It's contained in vials that are surgically implanted in a woman's forearm. And that was approved on the same day that the report came out that half of black children live in poverty, are born into poverty. And this editor connected the two and said, well, the reason why half of black children are born into poverty is because the wrong women are having too many children. And so let's see if we can use Norplant and encouraged these women to use Norplant as a way of reducing the black poverty rate. And so this was a very explicit statement of this theory that the way to reduce black poverty is to keep black women from having so many children.
Now, you said the wrong women are having too many
Yeah, the
children.
wrong women meaning poor black women.
And who are the right women?
Pardon me?
Who are the right?
Well, you know, I think for some people, they would say, well, it's okay for middle-class black women to have, you know, children. Other people, you know, the real hardcore racists would think that black women have certain defects, you know, that our culture produces poverty, and so the solution to America's problems is to keep all black women from having so many children. Now, it's hard to find people who will say this. You know, David Duke, for example, will make statements like this. I've received letters from, you were reading a letter earlier, I've received letters from people who make these statements, you know, but...
Do they sign the letters they send you?
Actually, there is one woman who has been sending me letters for months, and she actually signs it and puts her address and everything else. It's interesting. She sends me, every time there's a newspaper story of a black person who commits a crime, she sends it to me and she writes, these are the kind of people you want, you know, reproduced. And I can only believe that there are others who think the way she does and just haven't gone to the trouble. We know people like that exist, and but it runs a spectrum from people who believe in black genetic inferiority and support actual eugenic programs to keep blacks from having so many children, to people who have a more social perspective on this and believe that this is a cultural problem in the black family that can be at least curtailed by keeping so many poor black women from having children. But it's all based on, you know, whatever end of the spectrum, it's based on a very dangerous myth that social problems are caused by reproduction, and that the solution to social problems is to keep certain people from having children.
Social problems are caused by reproduction.
Yes.
That leads me to defining a topic that we talk about frequently enough here on Say It Loud, white supremacy.
Yes.
And we call it white genetic survival, or white genetic survival needing to have black genetic annihilation.
Yes.
And one way to accomplish that is to put black men and brown men and so-called men of color in prison, and then to do the same thing with women, but also to have forced sterilization,
Yes.
have these contraceptive programs that destroy the family and separate the man from the woman.
Yes. Well, these policies are all interrelated, and what I try to do in my book is show the relationship among a number of reproductive health policies that, you know, if you just look at each one in isolation, you might not see the connection. And what I try to do is connect all of these policies. But you're absolutely right. It's not just policies directly related to reproduction. It's also policies like those that place so many black men and increasing numbers of black women in prison. My current project is on the child welfare system that puts a disproportionate number of black children under state control through the foster care system and through juvenile detention. And all of these policies work together to destroy the black family, to attempt to destroy the black family, to attempt to keep black birth rates lower, and to portray this image of black people as depraved and as passing down this depravity either genetically or socially to the next generation. And what that does is support policies that are oppressive, because it sends a message to the public that black people are the cause of their own problems. It has nothing to do with racism or racial injustice. It's our fault, you know, and so the way to solve it is to keep us locked up, keep us from having children. And it's all part of an interrelated web of laws and policies and ideas, ideologies that have existed since the founding of this country.
Now, what you described could be known as blaming the victim.
Yeah.
It's called sociological terminology. But a person who comes to mind, who's in the news right now because Hillary Rodham Clinton is over there in his stomping ground trying to run for a political position in
Right.
New York, Daniel Patrick Moynihan.
Yeah.
One of my favorite targets to take aim at, who basically defined the black woman as pathological, and that this was the problem of the black race today, the pathological black woman, not the rapist, murdering, thieving white man, but the pathological black woman. So we'll continue with this discussion, but we got to pay some bills first. And when we come back, we will continue with our conversation with Professor Dorothy Roberts, Killing the Black Body.
Okay, so that was phase one of this section. As you heard, girlfriend talking. That was Say It Loud from 1999. Nina talking with the author of Killing the Black Body, Nina La Negra. Yes, and let's continue with that particular interview. I will start it up with a few of the commercials from back then, because I thought that was rather interesting to, yeah, so let's move to the commercials, and we stop at 2017, and okay, 2250. Let's move it to 2250 and hear this particular commercial. Can I find that? Can I see that? Am I getting that bad? Yeah, let's just start right there because I don't want to waste the time. And I do wish to show you some more pictures. And here, just play the commercial.
Hey, Boston. Here comes the original, the official, the only comedy explosion. Anybody out there now? All my crackheads make some noise. All they put no one back. That crackheads are now disguising themselves as normal citizens. It's another comedy explosion. Coming to the Russell Auditorium Friday, July 9th. Here we go again. The second week, women got a whole different treatment for your ass. Hey, you got something to drink? Water. Friday, July 9th, starring Dean Edwards, Rashid, Jason Anders, Austin Fatboy, Comedy Jonathan Gay, hosted by WLC's Morning Mayhem, Sophie Drink, Ella Roy, Huck in the House, DJ Wade. Your tickets now to be enough Mad Bad Music, Funky Brad, another bad boy, Illuminous Entertainment production. Take these words.
Hey, yo, son, you have to write the remix now, even though you went in nothing backlit. The hurricane sees big dick, rip dick, straight out the wall, inspirational district. The Bronx, baby, it's crazy. I see my kid in her bad dick. When they know you heard, got shot. This hot, we got choppers on the spot. Watch your food stop, way up the block. Be like the cop and face the consequences. Risk being beat, killed, and arrested. Set, forced to live between white fences. It's a fucked up agenda, whether copper B or surrender. If you the 3 times self-defender, you going down, son. For way less than a pound, son. The government got no love. 25,000 niggas in New York in jail for drugs, and 3 million in the streets is thugs. What's up?
Hey yo, I dropped them sporadic. It ain't democratic. My demographic is trying to feel no type of static, but still can't escape from jail. From 168 to over the bridge, out of state is hate. Try to relate the violations, annihilation on all different type of missions. Word life, it's like the third right. You heard right, pull me over on the turnpike. Plus my birthright boarded by the government supported, court ordered. Good lawyer, I can't afford it. Sound distorted, I don't be where the wealthy be, so they gotta suffer me and act unhealthily. But I got something that they all should check. NYC, PMP up on his set.
Take these words home and think. Take these words home and think.
You watch us, you watch
Project is a New York-based national campaign to end prison construction for 5 years. Currently, the U.S. prison system incarcerates approximately 1.5 million, the highest number of any industrialized nation, while prisons remain the fastest-growing industry in the country. You were listening to No More Prisons, Hurricane G, Rishi, produced by DJ Selector from Raptivism Records. We are talking with Killing the Black Body author Dorothy Roberts, subtitle Race, Reproduction, and the Meaning of Liberty. We started out talking about black women born into bondage in slavery times and how free slave African women would scrape together money to buy their daughters and their sisters out of bondage so that they would not reproduce children into bondage again. And now in the 90s, in the 80s and the 90s, we have women addicted to drugs who are being arrested, who are being incarcerated, shackled during the delivery of their babies. Does it sound like slavery is in full effect? That song was talking about everything from prisons to driving while black to court-appointed lawyers to $700 million in tax dollars a year going toward the so-called war on drugs, and 50% of women on death row for killing an abusive spouse or partner. Dorothy Roberts, we're continuing with the discussion. Before the break, we were talking about blaming the victim, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and his whole notion that black women are pathological. Now, he may have said that about 30 years ago, but that was a very telling and dramatic statement that he made, which is still impacting women today, men today, families today, black people today.
Yeah, I think that's true. The image of the black family and this theory that the reason for black people's problems is the pathological nature of the black family is even more current today, that idea in politics today than it was then. And I think it's reflected in these policies that we were talking about, these reproductive policies and the prison policies as well.
Now, you talk also in your book about the fertility of black women and then at the same time the infertility of white women, and how there is a tremendous push, as Brother R.A. and I know from conferences that we've attended, the Human Genome Project, which is in full effect here in Cambridge and Boston area. They are rushing madly toward this deadline of the year 2000 to map the entire human genome.
Right.
And one of the things that they're working on in their shall I say, mad scientist laboratories are how to increase fertility for, well, it was probably billed as for all people, but I don't think it has that same effect for all people.
Yes. Well, one of the things I do is contrast all of these policies that are in effect that are targeted at black women and that seek to deter black women from having more children with the booming fertility business, which is billions, with a B, billions of dollars a year spent on helping primarily middle and upper class white women to have genetically related children. And let me just clarify something. There is a myth that black women are more fertile than white women. This is all a social myth. The truth is that poor black women have higher rates of infertility than white women do, and certainly than wealthy white women do, because of illnesses, because of high rates of sterilization. Black women are more likely to be infertile, and yet white women are far more likely to use fertility therapies, and especially high-tech fertility. Among infertile women, white women are twice as likely to use high-tech means of conception, like in vitro fertilization and egg donation and all the others that they're coming up with nowadays. And so we live in a country where there is billions and billions of dollars spent on helping white women to have children at the same time time that all this effort is going into policies to deter black women from having children.
And just to take a look at the media, we can look at the image of the white woman who gave birth to multiple children and how that was deemed as a modern miracle.
Yes.
And then on the other hand, the black women, several of them, one in Texas and one in Maryland, who also gave multiple births, and it was seen as an opportunity to look at these multiple births. Can't something be done about this? There isn't something that's not quite human to give birth to so many children like this, and we ought to look into curtailing this kind of activity.
You are right on point. That is so true. When the McCoy septuplets, the wealthy Iowan couple, had 7 babies, it was almost entirely, I mean, at the initial stages, it was all a celebration. You know, they were on all the talk shows and the newspapers. The New York Times, for example, which is the paper I follow, had only positive things to say about this. And it was only at the very, very end that anyone even raised any questions at all, and very few people did. Whereas when the Nigerian couple had the 8 children, the very first stories that came out were questioning the ethics of families having so many children, talking about the high cost of multiple births and the risk to the babies. This was the first take on that story were questions about it. As you said, how unnatural it was, how risky it was, how expensive it was. I saw a very different approach to when the white couple had children versus when the black couple had so many children.
And then even in the terms of public assistance that came forward, I believe the white couple received a new home, new car, a lifetime supply of diapers, baby food, et cetera, et cetera. And this couple down in Maryland were struggling with all these children and no money, no cars,
nothing. They had no attention. And I really think the only reason the Nigerians, the octuplets, got as much attention as they did is because, you know, black folks said, wait a minute, there's a double standard here. But this is only reflective of the general impression that the media gives about these high-tech fertility treatments. They're presented ordinarily as wonderful things, and, you know, you see these pictures of these blonde-haired, blue-eyed babies in the press and on TV as the wonderful products of modern technology. Whenever there's stories about black children that are produced by these technologies, they're usually horror stories. You know, it's when something went wrong.
Oh, in New York.
Right? The white woman got a black man's sperm by accident.
Oh, my goodness.
Right. Horrible. You know, it's literally, if you go back and look at these articles, it's literally presented as a freak show, as a horror story. You know, I remember one headline was fertility clinic startling error, you know, and then they showed the white baby and the black baby together, and it's almost, I can't think of a story about a black child produced by modern technology that was a positive story. And yet we have hundreds of stories about white children that are presented in a positive light as the wonderful products of what modern medicine and modern technology can provide. And I think that the racial message behind this is just inescapable.
Well, you know, that's all going to change when Gattaca comes into the and people can go to the computer and select the traits that they prefer best for their children.
That's another myth. That myth. And I'm so happy you mentioned. You know, you're sharp. You notice all these things. You notice all these things too. I mean, this is my job.
Yes, I'm cursed. I do notice.
You're really good. Yeah, Gattaca. That annoyed me as well because in Gattaca, you know, I don't know if the audience remembers that movie.
They need to go and rent it if they don't.
That's right. You should rent it because just to refresh people's memories, it was a movie supposedly about, you know, this modern world where parents could select the genetic makeup of their children, and you could produce genetically perfect children so that racial discrimination was no longer present. people were discriminated based on physical flaws, but not on race. This was the pretext of this movie. And one of the funny things about the movie was, of course, the stars of the movie were these two blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. So already the movie discounted this wonderful future that was supposed to exist. And it presents this myth, which is also the myth of the Human Genome Project.
Oh, yes.
That we are going to overcome racism through genetic technology. And it's just the opposite. The genetic technology is going to be used and interpreted according to the social order and the prejudices and the injustices that already exist. You can't get rid of social injustice through technology. The technology is going to further social injustice until you get rid of that first. And there is this dangerous myth that's out there that science is going to overcome racism.
Well, that's why I call it mad science. But I think that you are sharp, and that the Gattaca thing points out the godchildren, or the children that are conceived naturally, and then the genetically engineered children that are pre-selected. And to me, that really brought forward the whole Nazi notion of the Aryan race and the more perfect children, and then to test tube baby, yeah, right, all right, test tube baby. And we actually went to a conference on genetic engineering where one of the questions that came up in the legal section, and you'll appreciate this, Dorothy, was what do you tell your test tube baby? Basically, that you were conceived in a petri dish, but your mommy and daddy love you. And these are the kind of ethical questions that are up for discussion at these esteemed institution, which you spent some years of incarceration at Harvard, and I'm sure at others, where this is a topic of discussion, and it's not a joke. I mean,
it's going on. It's going on right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Let's go on right now and open up the phone lines and let some of you listeners get involved in this conversation that we're having with Professor Dorothy Roberts, Killing the Black Body author, Race, Reproduction, and the Meaning of Liberty. We have Maria on the line from Needham. Welcome to Say It Loud, Maria.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make a quick point about the theory that the government is trying to control black women from having children as far as regarding welfare. I think a big misconception that is hurting the black community is that most women on welfare are African American. And that's simply not the case. And I just wanted to make that point. I'll let you get back to the program and respond. It's a great program. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for calling, Maria.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, can I respond to that? That is a myth. It is not the case that most women on welfare are African American, but that myth has an impact on black women, because I think many people support policies that cut off welfare, and especially policies that deter women on welfare from having children, because they believe that most of these children are black. And so that myth, even though it is a myth, has a very powerful impact on social policy and on the policies that people will support.
Yes, I would agree with you. Let's go to the...
Hey, did that cut off and I wasn't aware of that? That wasn't supposed to do that? I think so, actually, to be honest with you. So I need to make my closing comments in these last 7 minutes. So, how are we coping and dealing today since that was done? And you're up there. Okay, let's bring you down here. And test tube baby. Harvard, MIT, all the genetic engineering programs right down the street from here where I'm at. Yeah, right down that main street, past that cement mixer is Kendall Square. Isn't that appropriate for the show that we have a cement mixer and in front of Kendall Square down the road on quote-unquote Main Street? Now, where is your consciousness? Where is your awareness? Who are you? That show was done in 1999. What date did I say on that cassette? Did you see the cassette? All right, I put it away already. But it was done, and this is 2018. Who am I? I'm just sharing knowledge and information. A brother who's thinking outside the box, you know, and I got 3 minutes to get out of here. I don't know if she's coming. Let's take down my mirror. But, who are you? Tell me who you are. Do you know who you are? Have you tapped into yourself, tapped into your divinity? As you saw me looking into the mirror, looking with infinity, I can see the door, I can see outside, I can see the ceiling, I can see the floor, and I'm going deep within myself in several levels of consciousness, the denotative level, the connotative or the innuendo level, and then I tap into the abstract. Can your consciousness be limited? Or do you allow yourself to tap into limitlessness as we get ready to have the winter solstice? And in my notes I wrote WHOLLY, a holy day, or a HOLY, holy day. New beginnings in 2019 as we prepare for what? The X, M-A-S, or is it the X, M-E-S-S? I'm just a brother. I showed the baby pictures, and am I as light as a feather still? Drop your chi, drop your energy. Allow myself to go deep within me. Allow you to go deep within you.